Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of the Sports Curious podcast, our Wednesday Wisdom Edition, which we talk about something, do a deep dive into something in the world of sports, a little different than our Monday and Fridays, which are kind of a quick report out of what's happening in the world to give you those conversation starters. Today, we are going to dive into the NFL season because it is upon us. It's exciting. Here to join me to talk all about this, as if you've listened to this podcast before, you know he's our football expert, obviously a sports expert in general. So here to join me to talk about this is my favorite co-host, brother, co-founder, Scott. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me on. NFL is officially back. NFL rules all. The best ratings out of any sport in the world. We made it through the combine, the draft, free agency, contract rumors, off-season workouts. Now we get to watch players take the field.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's kind of funny, though. I forget how much, we've had 1 week and a half of 2 weeks of college football. I kind of forget how it becomes this like constant in our house. Like we don't always sit and watch it, but it tends to always be on. And so I think that's why there's such a void after the football season. You're like, wait a minute. Like, we don't watch a lot of TV in our house, so it's usually music or something. So it's kind of funny. It's like, wait a minute, now what?
Yeah, what do we have? Thursday through Monday for 6-7 months are consumed by football. So that void is there in the off season. Now we'll feel whole again. Yeah,
I know it's a sacrifice, but someone's gonna have to do it.
And here we are. And I just noticed that you happen to be wearing a sweatshirt in September.
I am. Well, I had to show off my Taylor Swift sweatshirt, my football era sweatshirt, because obviously she is such a hot topic of this season. I've already seen ESPN come out and say, hey, yeah, thanks, Taylor, for coming to games. That did really help our ratings. Well, duh, right? But she's going to be at games this year because her tour schedule seems to work out very nicely with the Chiefs' schedule. But I want to ask you before we dive into the Taylor Swift, what the Chiefs have won the past 2 years. Are they going to be any good this year? Critical for us to know.
It's very critical. They are favored to win the Super Bowl again, as long as Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes are on the field. On the sidelines, there's no reason to doubt them. A lot of experts have looked pretty dumb picking against them, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're not going to win, because they've won back-to-back, and they're going for a three-peat, which no team in the Super Bowl era has ever done. So we're sitting on something could be historic. And they haven't shied away from it. They've spoken about, that's their goal. That's the ultimate goal, is to win the third, make history, and have Taylor Swift there to be part of it.
And do you think after that, they win a third, Travis Kelce hangs up his cleats, says, we've done it, move on?
I think I've spoken to you about this previously. I think this is likely his last year, given the amount of things he's doing off the field with podcasts and hosting TV shows and movies, and probably making more money doing that than actually playing football. So,
well, at some point, your body is he's in a position where he gets hit, your body gets beat up and you don't bounce back like you used to.
Not too many tight ends, or I think he's going to year 11. There's not too many tight ends that are out there still performing at a high level like he is.
So for someone who's not familiar, now we have all these videos have gone up on our TikTok and our Instagram all about positions in football. So there's a lot of this detail there. But for someone who's not familiar, what does the tight end do?
The tight end position has become pretty versatile in the past decade or so, with players like Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, George Kittle. Traditionally, they would be on the end of the offensive line on either side. They're kind of a combination of an offensive lineman that blocks, but can also go out and catch.
Like a receiver, okay.
Like a receiver. Travis have really redefined the tight end position. Now they line up out where a wide receiver is, and it's impossible to cover them because of how big they are. Based on the defenders who have to cover them, that's why Travis is so good. He's such a big presence on the field, and him and Patrick just have this connection that they know where each other's going to be.
Yeah. It must be the Subway commercials they've been doing together. Definitely.
I think it's the Subway and maybe the thousands of other commercials they're appearing in.
Those things. So that's kind of old school. Now let's talk a little bit about let's touch briefly on it, because I don't want to bore people. But we did say that Taylor's schedule does work, so we will see her on TV, which she has obviously killed it when it comes to bringing new young female fans. I can't tell you the amount of guys that I've talked to that say my 8-year-old, my 10-year-old daughter will sit and watch a football game for a chance to see Taylor Swift, but then they learn to like the game, which I think is phenomenal, right? She only has 3 conflicts with game dates, so there's that.
Yeah, very conveniently made her tour schedule so she would only have to miss 3 games. And I think, like your sweatshirt says, we're in our football era at this point. Come for Taylor. Only thing bigger than the NFL at this point is Taylor. So you combine those two on a Sunday or Monday, and I mean, the ratings are going to go through the roof, and that means more fans exposed to the NFL, which is exciting for, probably exciting for fathers who have young daughters who now can watch football games together and talk about it.
Yeah. The NFL is like, okay, we need to get in the game of matchmaking.
Mm-hmm.
So when Kelsey retires, we have somebody else to come in, whoever that might be. Somebody hook Olivia Rodrigo up with somebody, like someone that's like going to get everybody excited because they're going to need to fill that void.
Yeah, I'm not even sure where we could even go. That might be a whole podcast topic we could do at some point.
We gotta bring in someone. We gotta bring in like an 18-year-old or maybe a 10-year-old to talk to us all about who that person might be. So
we'll start talking to some 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
See if we can afford them.
Okay, so we have a season of firsts this year. We have Tom Brady starting in the broadcast booth for Fox. We have a bunch of young new quarterbacks, which typically isn't usual for a quarterback to come out of college and start in the NFL. And we have a bunch of new head coaches. So talk to me about this newness. Maybe let's talk about Tom Brady first. He's taking over for Greg Olsen, which I'm sad to see him go because I think Greg Olsen is such a phenomenal broadcaster. But he's taking over for Greg Olsen in the booth for Fox. 10 years. I need to look them up. $300-something million for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so he'll join Aaron Andrews and that crew on Fox. But there's some challenges because isn't Tom Brady trying to be an owner of the Raiders too?
Yes, he is. So there's some challenges that a guy like Greg Olsen, who, did such a great job commentating on the Super Bowl. He's now, I think, the number 2 with Fox. So he'll still be commentating just on different games. Tom has taken a liking to Mark Davis and the Raiders since he retired, and he's been trying to buy into a piece of the Raiders. It has not been approved, but he's going to be restricted from obviously talking to teams, talking to players, going to practice before the broadcast, like all these commentators get to do, to get to know the players, kind of what schemes they're looking for, different plays.
Because he has a buy-in with, he would be considered like on enemy territory type of thing.
Yeah, so essentially all the other owners don't want him in their building, knowing exact behind the scenes, seeing what's going on. So he's going to be restricted immensely in doing his job. So it'll be interesting to see how, for Tom, who's known for being so prepared and studying and meticulous about his craft, how he's going to go about getting around these restrictions.
Yeah, like someone's almost going to have to present them with their notes. That is really fascinating. I never really even thought about the advantages that he would get ahead of time. That's fascinating. I
mean, there may not be any advantages, but everyone in the NFL is so paranoid.
Yeah.
Basically because of Patriots. So now they don't want to allow someone into their facility to see things that only, players and coaches see. So it'd be interesting to see how his perspective will be during games without that access.
I'm sure someone will take some serious notes for him and a lot of other things that he'll get enough information, but he won't have that one-on-one conversation with Scott, who's the new running back. He's not going to be able to have some of that.
Mm-hmm. And that's what really makes the broadcast, when they can connect and share personal stories and say, I spoke to this guy about this and things like that. So it'll be something to pay attention to once he gets in the booth.
That'll be really interesting. Okay, you'll have to keep us posted on that as we come along throughout the season. Now, we have a bunch of young quarterbacks, right? So if you've been around college football, you've heard some of these names because they were Heisman Trophy candidates, Heisman Trophy winners, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, and they've now moved into the NFL. And tell those who maybe haven't listened to the podcast on NFL play calling, which I highly recommend. But if they haven't listened to that, why is it so hard to move from college to the NFL? And therefore, typically why rookie quarterbacks don't come in and start.
I will start with the play calling. This year in college is the first time they've ever been allowed to use headsets to talk to their coaches to get plays. So these quarterbacks did not have experience with that coming into the league. That was not a rule when they were in college. So a majority of the learning curve for these young quarterbacks, Caleb Williams out of USC #1 pick, Jane Daniels, who's starting for the Commanders, and Bo Nix, who got the starting job for the Broncos, they're going to have to listen to these play calls, process the play, say it to their teammates, all before it cuts off from the coach with 15 seconds, I think, on the play call.
And we should acknowledge that this play isn't like, hey, Travis Kelce, run right, turn and hook, and I'm making stuff up. Like, these are like intricate processes with things, words that mean things, where it's like trash can, blue, carrots. It's like all these weird things they have to spout off. And so it's not this easy to relay or easy to know. You really have to almost translate it like another language before you can, when you disseminate it across the line.
Absolutely. Bo Nix is going with Sean Payton, who's one of the great offensive minds in the league's history, but he also has these ridiculous play calls that are not easy to understand. So for him so he's going to be starting in Seattle first game, which is like the loudest stadium in the NFL, for his opening game. So that'll be very interesting to see. He's just getting thrown straight in the fire.
No kidding.
For someone like him, I think he started the most games than anyone in college history. I mean, so he's got experience, but you can't plan for that on the road.
No. That's so interesting. I did not know that. That is baptism by fire.
Throw him straight in the fire, see what happens. If he succeeds, then the rest of the season will be a breeze from there.
So fascinating. Okay.
I was going to say, these guys have just brought in so much hype to their respective organizations that have kind of been longing for someone to come in there and be that franchise quarterback. We saw Caleb Williams on Hard Knocks. He's captivated all of Chicago, all of Chicago Bears fans, and they've been waiting for a very long time to have a very good quarterback. So hope springs eternal until the season starts.
What was really interesting?
He'll be the guy.
I thought was really interesting watching Hard Knocks, and we talk so much about how, just careers in general, networking's important, all those things, knowing your audience. They're in there with Caleb Williams saying that referee's child is in college at Auburn, and this is this. So he's having to learn. So he has those connection points he can make with the referees and all the other people that are essential to his success. And I thought that was really interesting and something you just really never thought about. You always saw Tom Brady like shooting the shit with a referee, but he also complained a lot. But it's kind of one of those, like, if he has a personal relationship, maybe they give him a little extra, which they tended to do.
And that's honestly the first time I've ever heard that as well, that they did so much research into the refs. And like you said, if there's maybe a questionable late hit on him, maybe that ref's going to throw that flag because he feels invested. He feels like there's some kind of rapport with the quarterback.
Yeah, because Caleb wished his kid a happy birthday that day or something. It's like, it's really fascinating how that politics works. Now, I want to, speaking of politics, let's move into private equity. So the NFL, these are teams owned by groups of people, right? But they have agreed to give up to 10% of a team ownership that can be purchased by private equity. That is not unusual in the world of sports. Most of global soccer is that way. The other big three American sports, baseball, basketball, hockey, they do allow some private equity ownership as well. So this will be really interesting because it's going to allow them to have some flexibility. They won't be able to spend more money on salaries for the most part because there is a salary cap, but it could improve facilities and other things.
Yes, thankfully these billionaires can finally get some assistance with running with running their own franchises. So yeah, they passed the rule. I'm not sure if you said it, but so they can sell up to 10% of the teams to give them some more flexibility. Interesting, the only team that voted against it was the Bengals. And they were notoriously known for being one of the I'm sure every fan in Cincinnati will say it's one of the cheaper franchises.
Mm-hmm.
And really only until recently when Joe Burrow came along, they started investing heavily in their franchise. So it was interesting to see that they didn't want any help.
Yeah, they're like, we got this.
It'll be interesting to see how much it actually improved. I mean, how much? 10% for a billionaire? I don't know.
But 10% if your, your team's worth, I don't even know what teams are worth anymore. They're worth 1.3 billion, I think. Was that something
The
sound right for the
Cowboys
Broncos?
were valued at 10 billion and they haven't won a Super Bowl since '96. So
So it may not be money that's the
10%,
problem.
yeah, that's a whole different podcast we can do as well. But
But it will
yeah,
allow some of these facilities. I know we've talked about it on our college podcast, but some of these players come out of these phenomenal college facilities and they roll into their NFL team facility and they're like, whoa, this is not nearly as good as my Oregon or insert
no,
college facility. They're not sexy, but an owner's probably not going to want to invest the money in that because you need to pay for salaries for players, et cetera,
mhm.
et cetera.
That not all owners are fully invested in their teams like they should be. Was it last year they came out with the report that like didn't the Cardinals charge players for lunch and
Mm-hmm.
like meals at the facility
Mhm.
where these guys at Alabama or Clemson or Georgia are in $500 million facilities with water slides and hot
Right.
tubs, cold
And they're
tubs,
probably
free food
making
whenever you want.
are
Yeah.
probably making more money than with NIL, probably making more money than some of the NFL players.
Yeah. It's very random. I saw a stat that Shador Sanders is making more on NIL than I think a majority of the rookies this year. So,
That sounds about right. And if you don't know NIL,
yes.
it's name, image, likeness. It's the opportunity for college players to make money off of their name, image, and
Mhm.
likeness. Speaking of money and being expensive, being an NFL fan is going to be more expensive this season because they're on like every platform. And not that most of us don't have every single platform because we kind of have to, right? Especially if a kid or somebody else in the house. But they're going to be on multiple platforms, different nights. But what they've done, and I may be jumping ahead, is every night's, maybe that's basketball. Every night's going to be on the same platform. Like it's basketball. It's every Tuesday night's on a certain platform. So what subscriptions do I have to buy?
I think that was NBA that they're going to have designated nights because NBA is all over the place with their schedule. So I think that they will have designated nights for different platforms, which will make it easier to find on a random Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
NFL's making it very challenging to be a fan this year. You're going to have to pony up. We saw them last year dip their toes into it a little bit with, putting that Chiefs playoff game on Peacock, making
Yes.
everyone sign up for Peacock. That was kind of
A bold move.
that was the point of no return because then they saw like there's no reason not to. So now you're gonna have games on CBS, Fox, NBC, ESPN, ABC, Peacock, Amazon Prime Thursday nights, and even Netflix for 2 Christmas games. So
And a
gonna,
partridge in a pear tree.
it's going to be expensive and confusing to be a fan this year.
Yeah, I do that so much now, even just like watching WNBA games is like, where am I watching this game? What platform do I have to pull up? And we just bought our Red Zone or our DirecTV Sunday ticket. Not DirecTV anymore. It's on YouTube. Sorry. It's expensive. It's super expensive. And it's like, this is kind of ridiculous. But here we are.
I mean, you got to watch football. So I think, unfortunately, you have no other choice in the matter. So you're going to have to pay up and figure out where your team's actually playing that game on what platform.
Yeah.
The biggest takeaway is Christmas on Netflix.
Okay, Christmas on Netflix.
Which will be the Chiefs. So I'm sure NFL will get a Christmas
Bonus
present from Taylor to show.
Okay, so let's talk about, there's 2 things I want to cover. One, tonight is my fantasy football draft. So I'm going to need you to talk to me about MVP odds. Who do I need to draft? These, because they're all quarterbacks that look to be the leaders in the MVP odds right now.
Yeah, MVP odds, we'll start there. Very quarterback heavy at the moment. It's tough to fathom anyone else winning one other than a quarterback at this point, unless you have a crazy defensive player. Haven't most amazing year ever. So obviously we're starting with Patrick Mahomes. Currently favored. Josh Allen from the Bills, Joe Burrow from the Bengals, CJ Stroud in his second year with the Texans, who had a magical his rookie year. So those are the top 4. That can change at any moment. But as far as fantasy draft, I wouldn't necessarily take any of those guys in the first round if I were you.
Okay. We'll discuss offline, but I always need my pointers from how I do this. And some years I win and some years I suck. So there you go. Happens.
Yeah, I would take the guy that they throw to or hand the ball off to.
Got it. That makes
The
sense.
draft.
That makes sense.
Much better strategy. Yeah.
So the other thing, speaking of strategy, the NFL is rolling out a new kickoff rule, which we've had this discussion in our household, and I've been trying to explain it, but I know it's for safety of players because kickoff is really a huge place for head injuries because players are running full speed down the field to hit one player who's catching the ball. So they've implemented these new kickoff rules. Can you kind of give us a 101 on that so we sound educated?
Yeah, in the years past, they passed so many safety rules on the kickoff. Like you said, it was the number one play where people got injured. So they had to make rules to make it safer, which made it boring. And last year it was just a non-factor in the game. Only 22% of kickoffs were actually returned. When NFL sees that, they don't want people leaving and going to the bathroom during a kickoff because they know nothing's going to happen. So they changed the rules, which they actually tested out in the XFL.
Okay.
First. So they used a variation of that. And RIP to our Vegas Vipers in the XFL. I went to a few of the games, so I kind of got to see how it works. It'll make it more exciting, for sure. So here, instead of running at each other from distance like barbarians, they're going to line up 5 yards. Returning team and the kickoff team, they line up 5 yards apart.
Okay.
And the kicker's way back on his own 35-yard line. And the kickoff team will line up on the 40, and then the receiving team will line up on 35. So they're 5 yards apart.
Got it. So there's not a lot of...
There's 5 yards, basically, to run at each other. Then they have, inside the 20, there's going to be 2 guys to return the ball.
Okay.
Behind them. So not that far either. It's only,
so here's my 20
20 yards past them, and
there's this guy.
Nobody other than the kicker can move until the receiving team actually catches the ball.
Interesting.
So there's not, these high impact collisions taking place anymore. It's going to be more of like a muffled impact.
Okay, but there's still a chance for those two kick returners, punt returners, to make a play versus it just kind of being a dead. Okay.
Yeah. So sense. There's only one line of defenders at this point. So if you can make one person miss, it's going to make it a lot more entertaining. There's no fair catches anymore.
Okay.
Well, there's incentive and they have to kick the ball or else it moves up to a certain point in that 20-yard landing zone. So it's going to encourage a lot more returns, a lot more action. And we'll see how these special teams coaches, kind of take advantage of the rules and where they kick it and how they kick it. And there's even been talk of some position players that can kick, possibly kicking kickoffs instead of the kickers, sorry.
Interesting.
Just because they're going to become more of a factor in tackling. That's
really interesting. That's super interesting. So what happens if they kick the ball out of bounds? Like it goes through the end zone or something?
I don't know the exact come-ups. No, the touchback, I think it moves up to the 30 this year.
Okay.
So there's really the incentive is they want that ball in that 20-yard landing zone from the 20 to the goal line.
Got it. The NFL wants you to kick the ball, watch people run, score, get excited. Don't kick it out of bounds because I'm going to make it not a positive for you. So we're really going to hone in on accuracy at this point.
So where the ball's kicked is going to be crucial. So it's something to really, and we'll watch the strategy of these teams as the year progresses when they can kind of figure out how to take advantage of it.
Is that kickoff only or is that punt returns as well?
That's kickoff only for now.
Okay.
Punts are a little bit trickier. I'm sure they're trying to take that out as well. So we'll see.
Okay.
That might be next season. Yeah.
Stay tuned for that one. Okay. That was my question.
We've also kind of seen the death of the onside kick, a surprise onside kick.
Oh.
Unfortunately, that's used to be one of the most exciting. You can do it whenever you want, surprise. But now it can only happen in the fourth quarter of a game, and the team has to alert the officials that they're actually going to do it.
Does the official have to tell someone, or the official just we all knew this is the secret play? I guess it's onside kick.
So. Yeah, so they'll have to alert the official. I believe the other team as well. So there's no You're not going to see a surprise onside kick anymore, which is kind of sad.
I mean, they're taking all the good surprise out of things.
Yeah.
It's such as the nature of the beast. Safety is not a surprise. We want everyone to be safe.
Exactly.
So
the two very big things to look out for this year. That
okay.
A lot of people when they tune in that first game are going to be very confused.
Yeah. That's why I was like, I really even like marked this to clip it, because I may actually have you do a separate video for TikTok and Instagram, just because I think this is interesting. And even football fans who have been football fans for life, this is something new to learn. So you all just got a heads up on what's happening, a nice 101 version, because every time I've read about it, it was not that easy to understand.
There's a lot of variables that I probably missed a few, but that was the basis of
That's the basics.
what they're
That's what
trying
we
to
need.
do. Yes. Yeah.
The basics. So we have a whole host of great female coaches throughout the league, on the Ravens especially. And those will lead us, in theory, to the Super Bowl in New Orleans, which is where we will be again this year for our A Day in the Life of Football Camp for Women, with our favorite first female coach in the NFL, Dr. Jen Welter. And so that'll be really cool to see how this season flushes itself out. We have some ladies on the sidelines that we'll be able to watch them continue to soar. So it's very cool to see.
Yep. Most female coaches in NFL history. We've got 15 this year, 3 on the Ravens. I think basically what we've seen is that if you can coach and you can help these players, they don't care who you are. If you're a man,
good.
Woman, or dog, if you can get them to succeed and win a Super Bowl,
That's all that matters.
So it's incredible to see these women stepping up and taking advantage of the opportunities they've been presented.
No, I want to wrap us with, normally I leave it up to you, but I think we've hit most of our notes today, minus this one. I texted you a couple days ago and said, hey, I heard on the radio that Carrie Underwood makes $1 million a week for her Sunday night football opener song, which is the favorite in our household. Like, my son is like, this is what I need. I don't care about the football game. Carrie Underwood's on. But we've since proven that's not true.
What's that? Everyone waits all day for Sunday night. And Carrie, and I think you texted me that you thought she was making $1 million a week off that song. And that's something I've never thought about.
Yeah. She did an interview with Howard Stern. So I dove into this because I was really intrigued by this whole, does she really make $1 million a week? Like, that's fantastic. Because it's only for the regular season. And she told Howard Stern, now this is in 2023. I haven't seen anything since, but since 2023, which was not that long ago, she said, no, it's pretty pro bono. So the rumors of her making millions of dollars are inaccurate. And she said that Google steered everyone wrong. So
sorry,
there you
Carrie,
have
I'm
it.
sure she sees a jump in her Spotify plays every week. So
I hope so, for her sake.
For her sake, yes.
It's the best part of Sunday night. It's like, it's that song you hear that lets you know it's fall and all the other things. So I look forward to the football season. For those of you listening, if you have questions throughout this season, we can revisit some NFL 101. We can revisit the Chiefs season. We can revisit a lot of these things throughout the season and whatever you might want to learn a little bit more about. So obviously you can find us at lastnightsgame.com, but also on all the social media platforms. Scott and I are there reading the DMs. So of course, send us a note if there's something you want to learn about. Thanks for joining me today, Scott. I appreciate it.
Go football.